Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for attending our quarterly Utility Systems Lunch and Learn. Today, we are going to focus on septic to sewer conversions. How many people out here have been to a Lunch and Learn before? Good. That's awesome. Okay. How many people are on a septic system? Okay. All right, good. How many people have a grinder system? Okay. How many people are on gravity? How many people have no idea any of the words that I'm saying right now? Okay. All right, so we'll talk about that. So thank you all so much for being here. My name is Jenny Tomes. I'm Assistant Manager of Community Outreach. So our other panelist with me here today is Jada Rios. She is with Connection Support. She's a supervisor. So today, the two of us, and we've got some utility system staff in the audience as well, so this is awesome. Anything we can't cover, and if you have any questions, we should be able to get all your questions answered today. So we are going to focus on septic to sewer conversions. I'd like to first acknowledge our sponsor. Without our sponsor, we would not have this amazing box lunch for you today. So that is Joe Papadakis in the back there. Joe, raise your hand, say hi. So he is with E1. We're gonna let you eat, and then he will describe to you the sewer system. He will describe to you how that grinder works. We're gonna let you eat your lunch first though, right? Get that down, and then we'll start really getting into the sewer side of things. But again, just want to acknowledge E1 for making these events possible. All right. All right, so unfortunately, Tim Richards could not be with us today. I think he got hung up at another meeting, but again, between all of us, we'll get everything covered here. So I first want to go over just a quick history of Port St. Lucie and kind of how we got to this point where we are right now with our present sewer system. So back in the late 50s, General Development Corporation developed Port St. Lucie. They were selling quarter-acre lots for just $10 down and $10 a month. If you build it, they will come. Can you imagine? $10. You can't put $10 down on anything anymore. I don't think gum is $10 anymore, or it is. All right. So when General Development Corporation started building here, then they also had General Development Utility System or utilities. So they were building homes, putting in the infrastructure for the water and sewer services. But building started to boom, and other developers wanted to come here and wanted to build in Port St. Lucie as well. So there were 80,000 homes platted by the early 1980s. But like I said, other contractors, other developers were wanting to set up shop here in Port St. Lucie as well. But they weren't utilizing GDU. So they weren't connecting to GDU and GDC's infrastructure. So a lot of the homes that these other developers were building had their own septic system and own well. They were not hooked up to the infrastructure. So kind of fast forward a couple decades, 1990, GDC was struggling to keep up with demand. They filed for bankruptcy. The utility assets were transferred to St. Lucie County at the time. But just a couple years later, St. Lucie County struggled as well. On a Monday morning, several thousand folks woke up and did not have water. So that really got some dialogue started between St. Lucie County and the city of Port St. Lucie. So in 1994, St. Lucie County transferred those assets to the city of Port St. Lucie. So a lot of my charts and things start with 1994, since that's the time that Port St. Lucie took over. But they were determined to expand the infrastructure because, like I said, it was only in certain parts of town. A lot of folks were still on septic and well, and there wasn't, citywide infrastructure. So at that time, in 1994, we had just over 17,000 water customers and almost 11,000 sewer customers. So that number has grown and grown and grown. We have, 96,000 water customers now, I think? Yeah, so it has grown, as you know. So back then, in 1994, City Council had some concerns. Once we acquired the utility, there were some public health concerns. There are as many as 4 septic systems on 1 acre of property. So if your septic system fails and you have a private well, you now run the risk of that wastewater leaching from your septic system into your well, okay? So there's a concern there. So that would certainly jeopardize the health of residents. And then all drainage flows to the North Fork of the St. Lucie River. So now there's a lot of risk for contamination. There was concerns about water quality, but they were also interested in the economic impacts of having so many septic systems still in the city. Without infrastructure, businesses aren't gonna wanna come here and set up shop, okay? Which means higher taxes because you don't have any kind of economic growth. Houses could only be so big because a septic system can only handle so much waste. And then schools couldn't be built either. So, kids in Port St. Lucie were being bused to Fort Pierce schools because, again, we didn't have the infrastructure in place to take care of those needs. So, real quick. So I hear the words septic and sewer kind of used interchangeably. So real quick, a septic system just means it doesn't take power to operate. All of the wastewater that leaves your home enters a septic tank, and then whatever is in there is sort of pushed out into this drain field. This drawing sort of makes it look like it's all in the front of the house, like in the front yard. It's in the back or on the side. But anything that leaves the home is pushed into the septic tank, which pushes what's out. I won't go into detail, but the solids sink to the bottom. Grease kind of floats on top. But whatever liquid's in there is pushed out into this drain field. And again, like I said, if your septic system fails and it's close enough to your groundwater well, now you've got the potential and the risk of that wastewater getting into your groundwater. And if you're close to a waterway, it could possibly leach into that waterway. So back then, 1994, Port St. Lucie City Council had some tough choices to make. We were concerned for our residents, we're concerned for our public health, the economic health of our city. We need to figure out what we're going to do to get everyone on city sewer. So they had two options. They could go to a gravity system, and you'll see that a gravity system is more costly because it's about 15 to 20 feet deep. So if this is a road and I've got houses on either side, the pipes have to be so deep into the ground and on an angle so they all come together and meet in the middle and then enter the sewer system. So it's a lot more invasive. There's a lot more restoration that has to take place because now you're upending sidewalks and driveways, and it's a lot of construction and then restoration. So the grinder system, which we'll talk more about this grinder here, but the grinder system is less costly. It's only about 3 to 5 feet deep. It's easier for contractors to install, and then it's easier, if anything goes wrong with it, it's easier to get to, right? So we can maintain it a little easier. So they decided to go with the grinder system. This was a very controversial decision, as you can imagine, because homeowners were now being assessed. They were going to have to pay their share of all of this new infrastructure. So there was a lot of controversy. A lot of folks were upset because now you're taking on another bill. There's a lot of costs, right, to it. City Council listened to all those concerns, but then you have septic companies who are upset. Wait, we're not going to have septic systems anymore? That's hurting our business. So it was a tough decision to make. Quite frankly, I'm glad I wasn't around. I was in high school, and I didn't have to deal with any of this. But it's an interesting history, again, and there's a lot more to it. I'm giving you a very, very abbreviated version of it. But City Council, again, listened to all those concerns, and they really wanted to make it as painless as possible for folks to convert. So they came up with a 10-year financing program with no interest that's still in place. Jada's going to talk more about that here in a moment. But it's not mandatory to hook up to city sewer unless your septic tank fails and the infrastructure is in place to hook up. You may still use your private wells for irrigation. And then all new construction, so any new homes, any new businesses, they are all hooked up to city sewer, okay? All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Jada, who's gonna break down the costs to connect.
All right, good afternoon. I'm sorry. My name is Jaida. I'm the supervisor, as you mentioned, from Connection Support. So basically, for those that are interested in the 10-year interest-free loan, so the total cost of the conversion will be $7,749. That will be divided into 120 monthly installments, which will be $64.58 in addition to your monthly bills. So in your bills, you will see your water usage, your sewer usage, and then after that, you will see your capital charge agreement, which is your loan, and the amount of the $64.58 added onto your bills. And when you want to convert to city sewer, you do have to pay a deposit and a recording fee. If you go into the loan option, your deposit will be a total of $110, and then the recording fee is $45.50. So that'll be an upfront payment of $155.50 to get this started. In case that there is more than 2 owners in the property, in the deed of the property, of course, then you might have to have an additional page on your capital charge agreement. And so for each additional page, it'll be $8.50 added to the $45.50 recording fee. Now, there are 2 grant options. One is called the hotspot grant, which is we cover 50% of the cost of the conversion, meaning that you will only be responsible for $3,874.50, which is half of the $7,749. For that, the monthly installment will be $32.29 added onto your monthly bills. And there's 4 hotspots: Sagamore, Elkham, Monterey. Currently, we're rolling with the Elkham. I'm not sure if there's anyone here that might have received the letter, but whoever is in that area does have until February 26th, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. I got the copy of the letter here. Sorry. February 26th of 2025 to enroll.
Thank you. Folks, I know that there's so much information. I'm going to direct you to our website where more of that information can be found, because I know that we're just throwing a lot at you here, but I just want to backtrack slightly. So those hotspots were identified through a partnership with Harbor Branch. Folks went out into different waterways and they tested for fecal coliform, they tested for sucralose, they tested for acetaminophen, and those areas that are on that map that are highlighted in those different colors, and when we're done, you can certainly come up and take a closer look. Those areas were designated as hotspots. So back in 2018, they kind of rolled out phase 1 and then phase 2 a couple years later, but all of those areas were identified again through Dr. Brian LaPointe and our partnership with Harbor Branch FAU. So that's where that came from. So a lot of that grant funding comes from the Indian River Lagoon Council, and so as you leave, there's some Indian River Lagoon Council literature in the back if you're interested in learning more about that group. But then we also have $100,000 from the city of Port St. Lucie annually. So that's been going on since 2020. So there's money, like I said, in that grant funding. But again, if you live in those hotspots that Jada was talking about, you would have received a letter. We can certainly run your address to see if you live in one of those places, but just definitely keep an eye out. So right now, we have just over 12, or almost just under 13,000 septic systems remaining in the city. 3,854 are within 50 feet of a waterway. And those are very fresh numbers. So just since this program was put into place in 1999, 20 billion gallons of wastewater has been kept from the ground. It's all been diverted to one of our wastewater treatment plants. So that's a huge number. We're almost at 11,000 conversions since 1999. So you see all that new construction, almost 33,000 new construction hooked up to city sewer. Right now, we have about 50 conversions pending, which means folks have applied and they are just waiting for that conversion to take place. So on average, we do about 400 400 and few conversions a year. So this year we're projecting 550 conversions. Yep. There's that website at cityofpsl.com/septic to sewer. Again, this is so much information. Everything that we're talking about is on that particular web page. All right. Okay, so if you do currently have a septic system, we've also got some information how to know it. You know, your septic system is underground. It's hard to know kind of what's going on with it, but there are some signs if your septic system is failing. So you'll hear gurgling noises. We've all eaten. We good? Okay. All right. So it will smell horribly, probably like rotten eggs. You might have toilet and drain issues. You might have some backing up, you know, if you're using the shower, but you're hearing the sink kind of gurgling. Again, water is backing up. Or you've got some sort of standing water in your yard around that drain field. That might be an indication, too, that your septic system might need some attention. So reasons you may consider connecting to city sewer. So again, like we talked about, we maintain your grinder system. So, I mean, we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every holiday, doesn't matter. Overnight, your alarm goes off, you call us, you don't call a plumber. We're the ones, and I say we, not me. There's a whole division of folks who will come out and take care of that for you. But so we also mentioned that, you know, with septic systems, there's a potential that you know, if it's failing, it could leach into groundwater, it could leach into our waterways. So by being on a grinder system, you're helping to protect our environment, you're protecting our waterways, we're helping to protect the overall health of public. And then, you know, if you've been here in Florida, you understand the impacts it has if there is an algal bloom. You know, if suddenly you can't use the river, if you can't go fishing, if you can't go swimming. I don't know if you want to go swimming, alligators. But, you know, it affects businesses. A lot of people, you know, their livelihoods are based on our waterways. And if it's, you know, got algal blooms and things like that, then, you know, that's going to affect your business. All right, so would you like to go over the, okay. So she is going to talk about the steps. So like if you do call to convert, here's kind of everything from start to finish that you can expect.
Thank you. And I do have Mike there, so he's more of an expert than me, just in case. I'm going to call you out. All right, so after you enrolled and we have your paperwork ready and drafted, basically the first step will be a pre-inspection. The pre-inspection usually takes from 30 to 45 minutes, and they'll take some pictures, especially of your electrical panel. They'll locate your septic, they'll locate your clean out. They will go over the process with you a little bit, but they'll also point out anything that might be obstructing that needs to be removed, like bushes and stuff like that. And if they have to go over a hold harmless because they have to go through your driveway, then they'll also talk about that. After they do the pre-inspection, then the second part will be Apex Electric. Apex Electric is, so they will first call you because they have to make an appointment and you have to be there that day. You have to be present. And they're gonna run the power, most likely it's from the attic. So they'll run the power to the control panel. No, I'm sorry. They'll run the power through the attic, they'll install the control panel, and they'll hook up to the breaker. Now, I might be going more into details, but that breaker does have to have 2 spaces available. Your electrical panel, I'm sorry, has to have 2 spaces available. 20 amps dual pole GFCI breaker. And the grinder per se is 240 volts, is that correct? Yes. Okay. And then after Apex is done, then the third step will be accurate septic. So this is where the whole actual process of installing the tank and crushing your septic occurs. So they will crush your septic. They will dig the hole for the new tank, and they will connect the sewer line into our main line. And then the very last will be to dress up the yard, so they'll clean it out and level it to get ready for sod. And then the very last step will be actually replacing your sod, and that does take from 6 to 9 weeks to have it lay down.
And before I bring Joe up to introduce the star of the show over here, I just wanted to ask, was anybody at the Lunch and Learn back in October when we asked for feedback about this particular program? Anybody here? Yeah, okay. So this was the final report from all of that feedback that we gathered. So what we kind of realized was that, we have this program in place, but a lot of folks didn't know about it. And like I said, you hear the word septic and sewer, they're sort of used interchangeably. And, we might get a phone call and people are really kind of unclear on what system that they have. So, we had asked for the public to help us better understand what we need to do better. So one of the things that came out of that, and a great suggestion, so once a conversion takes place, your neighbors might see that there's something going on in the yard, but maybe they don't really know. So one of the folks had suggested putting yard signs. So as, like you see another roof job done by, so-and-so company. So you're going to start seeing these yard signs, and that's thanks to the feedback from one of the residents who said it would be kind of cool to put this in the yard because there is a little bit of a gap from, the actual conversion to getting that sod restored. So if your neighbors drive by and say, gosh, their yards are torn up, what happened? If you see this sign, you'll go, oh, okay, well, they must have, done a sewer conversion, and then you can, either call that number to get more information. So we kind of thought that was a really great idea. So I just wanted to let those folks know, if any of you were there that attended, we did take that feedback, we did put it in a report, we did share it with people. So it was a lot of really good, positive things came out of that. So I just wanted to, so thank you for attending that. So I'm gonna have Joe come up and really get into the star of the show here. Yes, one more question. 2018. So it looks like phase 1 was 2018, phase 2 was 2020. So it was over a couple years that they did a lot of that testing. If it's ongoing, so we don't know if it's worse or better. That I'm not. Donna, yes. That's right. Okay. So that, in case you didn't hear, folks, that was the question. So, we identified those hotspots. So are they still bad? Have they gotten better? So Donna, thank you, just contributed that. Yes, so grant. Yeah, so grant funding has been applied for so that they can implement a phase 3, so they can go back and revisit those hotspots to kind of see where we are, if this has been an impactful. So just in case you could all hear, so Public Works is continuing to monitor some of those areas and testing continues. But again, if we could get that grant funding, that would be amazing if they could go out and implement that phase 3. So, okay, Joe, turn it over to you.
Just on that note, I can tell you from doing this with E1, we were down in the Florida Keys, and a lot of the homes in the Keys have canals. And the residents there were, why do I have to switch from septic to a grinder system? And now, after about 14 years, they're seeing the growth come back. They're seeing the vegetation come back. They're seeing the manatees come up in the canals where they weren't before. So you guys will see the improvements there. So when we talk about the grinder system, basically what you're doing, if you do have septic, they're going to come in and they're going to put in a tank like this. All right? Everything's going to flow in through a 3 or 4 inch piece of PVC coming from the house. This is going to be located very close to the house, either in the front or on the side. All right, so everything's going to come in here. It's going to fill up into this tank, and when it gets about this high, this pump is going to turn on, and it's going to send it directly to the main through an 1.25 inch pipe, poly pipe that it sends it through. So then this is going to go to the plant. All we're getting now is exactly what goes through your drains, down your toilet, through your sinks. So we want to make sure that the only thing that's going down there is something that comes out of your body and toilet paper and water. We don't want to put fats, solids, any kind of wipes down there. Those can jam up a system. Anytime you look at something that says these are flushable wipes, look on the back. It says not to be used with a grinder system. Whether you're on grinder from your house or you're on gravity that takes it to a lift station that has some type of a grinder in there, it ends up in a grinder. When it goes to the plant, it ends up in a grinder somewhere. So we don't want to put those things down there. That'll help your system run much better. So everybody's going to eventually have these pumps. Right now there's 2 styles out there. There's an E1 and a Myers. We are converting from Myers to E1. The pump will come on, like I said, when it comes about this high. That's the regular on-off. If that were to fail, It's going to come up about this high. You're going to get an alarm. The alarm may go off for 15 seconds to 30 seconds. It's still going to pump down. It's going to do its job. But just like they were saying to you, call the city. If you hear every time you take a shower or a bath or you wash your clothes and you hear a little alarm for 15 seconds, call the city. They're going to come out. There's no charge to you. The system is working. It's taking the sewage away, but we want to make sure that it's working on the on-off level. That is just our backup, okay? If in the instance power goes out, you might hear that alarm come on. As soon as power comes back on, all of a sudden you see a bunch of residents, all kinds of alarms are going off. Ignore it for a half hour. Let the system catch up, because everything's going to come on and it's all pushing against each other. There's a lot of pressure. Once they start clearing, and we saw that just a few months ago, that those kind of things were happening. If you ever have any issues with your system, again, look on the box that's on the outside, call the city, they're going to come out and take care of it for you, okay? People would always ask me, well, what happens if it's going on a line and it's going to the main, and then that main backs up? Is it going to come back into my house? Well, the city has a check valve in there. This check valve, there's a flap in there, that when it flows out this way, the flap opens. Nothing can come back in this way, so nothing's going to come back into your home. If for some reason that were to fail, it was just old, it was time for it to be replaced, we also have another one built into the pump, so it's going to stop it there. Somebody had a question over here.
That was part of the answer I was looking for. My mother refuses to let me take a shower or run any more water. We turn off water to the house when we don't have power. So you're saying there's no way anything can come back in, that it is safe to continue to shower even with the alarm going off?
Well, when the alarm's going off, that's telling you that the level of sewage in here is getting high, okay? And it's only going to hold so much. So that pipe coming from your home is going to start to back up. If you flush your toilet and it seems like, whoa, that's not going down very fast, stop, call the city. If it's during a hurricane, a thunderstorm, something like that where power went out, don't save your water. Conserve your water. The city has a great program. During the last issue that we had, they had guys come out with generators, and they went to houses and pumped them down so that you could go ahead and take a shower. You could go to work that next day. They got you back up and running. All right, every one of the, yes, and they do. This is what they want to do. These guys are in the trenches. They're dealing with everything that goes down in your sewer, something that none of us want to do. They're there doing it every day, because if we don't get that out, we can't use any more fresh water. So we want to keep it going. So we're there to help you. All right? This is the new style that you're going to see all in the yards, anything that's new. The older style is a bigger green fiberglass tank. So if you see those out there, you do have a grinder system. Again, let the city do it. The city manages that. They take care of it, and it helps everybody, not only the environment, it helps the city, because we're having truly what goes down the drain go to the plant, and there's less, we call it I&I, infiltration, from just regular rainwater coming down, filling up our plants, so it helps save money. So does anyone have any questions about this system?
So if it's gravity fed, then you won't see something like that?
Correct. If it's gravity fed, this is all going down a pipe that is 15 feet, 20 feet deep, and then it goes to what's called a lift station that has pumps in there to pick it up and take it to the plant.
And with most of the new build, is that what they're using in most cases, is it gravity?
In most, and where?
Most of the new construction, like new homes?
It depends if gravity is in there. If you're in an area and they already have a gravity system in there, they're going to tie you to gravity. If they don't, it's going to be a grinder system.
Will you see a difference in your electric bill after installing this pump system?
It's very, very minimal. So when this system comes on, it's only going to come on for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, depending on how much waste is in there. And then it's going to shut off. I know years ago when I was working for a utility, somebody would ask about that. You may see a dollar difference in your electric bill. This does not run much at all. So, and we do want it to run. We want it to cycle. We want it to turn over. We don't want sewage sitting in there. Sewage causes septic gases. If you're outside and you smell like sewer, that could mean that there's a problem here, that it's filling up. It's not draining. Call the city. They'll come out and take a look at it for you. Everybody good? Everybody understands it? Now we're going to go on a field trip and change one of these. Thank you, everybody.
All right, folks, and if there's no other questions, thank you again for your interest. Thank you for your time and your attention. I truly appreciate you being a part of this community. Thank you so much.